Welcome to the Parent Life Podcast. My name is Jason Stanland. This is a weekly resource addressing critical topics for parents trying to raise Christian kids. We're a ministry out of Fruit Cove Baptist Church, and joining us this week is Chris and Rebecca. They are church planners in Southeast Asia. And we've known each other really only for a short time, mostly because our daughters became friends, and so we've done some play dates and stuff like that. But it's been really cool just to get to know you, so thank you so much for joining us today.
That's our pleasure.
So a few weeks ago, we celebrated Easter, and as Southern Baptists, we did the offering for North American missions. If you're not a Southern Baptist, by the way, we do lots of offerings for missions. Around Christmas, we do another one, and then in the fall, we do one even for Florida Baptists. So we're big into missions, and we've even been accused of that by people in our church. Like, it seems like all you guys care about is missions. We're like, yes, you got it just right. So I want kind of to talk about this as parents, though. How do we, first off, why is missions important for us as a family?
Right.
How do we pass the importance of missions even on to our kids? When you live in the mission field, or when you live as a pastor's kid, like my kids, then, it somewhat becomes innate. But if you're just part of the church, how do these things get passed on? So how would you guys like to respond to that for parents?
Yeah, I think, as being parents on the mission field with kids, we try to model, what we would expect for them to do. So it's not like, we've separated what we do apart from who we are. They go together. It's a symbiotic relationship. So, we include our kids in everything that we do, whether it's, being involved in church or just being involved in community activities. Just thinking about times like where our kids have played in soccer programs, and we, constantly remind them about the reason that we're playing soccer is because we love sports and we want to play soccer, but also because there's people that we're going to meet that maybe don't know Jesus, and we have opportunities to cultivate relationships with them. And so it just becomes something that we do normally.
As part of everyday living.
Living.
And these soccer leagues aren't necessarily the church soccer league. No. It's just the community soccer league, right?
That's right.
That's right. And so how have you seen that? Because your kids now are probably into the college years and stuff like that. So how have you seen that played out over the years?
I think in a lot of ways our kids have been really integral to our ministry. Like, they have loved other people, and it's been interesting to them as they've seen racism or come across people who don't understand missions. It's so normal to them to recognize that all people need the gospel, and that the gospel is not just for Americans or for the country in which we serve, but for everyone. That it's appalling to them and almost incomprehensible that people would not want to see other people come to know Christ. And so I think in that it has been, as they have each become followers of Christ, it has been something that they've taken on as their own. It's not, this is obviously our job, but for them it's a life, because, you mentioned some people are just members of a church, but there is no just a member of a church. Right. Everyone is called to missions, and everyone is called to evangelism and discipleship and being a healthy member of a church who is a follower of Christ.
So when we do this with our family and we're involved in all these activities, we don't think about them as projects, but it's just the natural overflow of our walk with Jesus. So it just becomes natural.
Yeah, and I love what you said, that it would become appalling to our children that someone would not want to share the gospel as a Christian with someone else. And what a great statement, or even a goal for all of our kids, that they would think in these terms. So let's talk a little bit about the practical. Like you said, so there is, you just want them constantly involved. So that's more of the, we'll call it organic method of discipling our kids, which is good. But, for a parent who is looking for ways intentionally to teach the importance of missions, model missions, things like that, what are some examples that you guys have used and you would, share?
Yeah, I would go back to the organic idea, right? Just living our lives as followers of Jesus. We don't separate our spiritual life from everything else that we do, but we read the Bible with personally in our quiet times, but we read the Bible with our children. We have time of prayer together. We do those things that we would just do if we were missionaries or not. That we would just live life that way. So it's just the natural overflow. On top of that, I would say in the Bible reading and in prayer, like in the Bible reading, just pointing out like when
take the story of Abraham, where he talks about, I'll make you a father of many nations, and how, God will bless all the nations through him. Like taking the time to point that out to your kids as you read and be like, hey, look, here is God's heart is not just for the people of Israel, but God's heart is for all the people. Because, for all of us, it's so easy to get involved in our own world and our own people, and not in a hateful way, but just we're just naturally all kind of self-involved. But to see that God's heart is for other people. And when it comes to prayer, there are some really great resources out there. imb.org, operationworld.org, and opendoors.org. They all have just prayer requests that you can look up, where you can specifically pray for a people group. My kids, especially in like the 8 to 15 range, really loved I think it was Open Doors has some videos, and those were very impactful for our kids, just to see, we do live overseas, but to see what life was like in a whole nother place, we're in Asia, but to see what African Christians were going through, or, European Christians, was really helpful for them, because like I said, we can, even as people who have crossed cultures, we can get involved in where we are and not realize how great the need is all around the world.
Yeah, and that's really important, just to help our kids have that global Christian perspective, because I love Nick Ripken, one of our members as well. He's done some mission work in the past. He likes to say that there is no persecuted church, and then our church is just the church, and wherever we happen to be at, we're all just part of the body.
Right.
So then, what would you say to families who are thinking about partnering in missions, short-term mission trips, things like that?
Yeah. So, yes, it's great.
We'd say do it.
That's right. We're
Just
supportive
do it.
of
Just
it.
go. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, definitely we see the local body as being a partnership of Christians, right? Individual Christians who are partnering together for the purpose of the gospel going to the ends of the earth. And so that's why Fruit Cove takes up offerings for all of these things. It's also why teams are being sent out all over the world, whether it's, just down the street or, to where we live in Southeast Asia. Get involved. Figure out a way. Pray about it. Pray for people that you may know. Pray for people you don't know. Pray for the missionaries. Pray for the lost people. But also give and go and send people. A lot of people feel like, well, we can't go because our children may not be able to be old enough to go on a trip. Well, there's a place you can go. And so be sent. And be active in sending. You want to add anything to that?
I'd say sometimes the going can be down the street. There can be a project that your church family is doing just down the street, or it could be, nationally or internationally. And I think there's different steps in that process, and different, kids have different maturities and can handle different things. But there's a lot of opportunities out there. And then I think also, even if you're in a position where maybe you can't go right now, if you have a church that's sending people, talk to somebody when they get back from their mission trip and be like, hey, can your family come over and have, let's have a little snack time together, and let the kids hear about what your experience was like, so that, you're building up the church, the local body of believers, and also building a heart for the nations.
Yeah, and I love that idea of like having other families that maybe got to go on a trip you didn't get to go on, you wanted to, something like that. Right. Hey, come over and talk to my family about that. I love it. So simple. Yeah. So I love what you guys said. And so real quick, let me turn to our listeners. He talked about pray, give, and go. And as our church, we talk about that all the time. And they're not designed to be exclusive, where you say, okay, I'm going to pray, but I'm not going to do the other two. Everyone can pray continuously, and you can give as the Lord allows you to be generous faithfully as God works in your life. But you can go, sometimes it's across the street, sometimes it's across the state, across the country, across the world. And it's all about really where God has given you the opportunity and where He's calling you to go. And just being really obedient to that. So for our members who are listening right now, if you're part of Fruit Cove Baptist, I would encourage you to go to fruitcove.com/missions and look at the trips that we're planning and just prayerfully consider, where might I go? Because a lot of times you say, oh, my kids are too little. I would actually push back on that. Most of the time, they're really not. We just don't want to, do that for some reason.
Our youngest is 7, and we've had several people in Fruit Cove talk to us about bringing some of the ones that she's made friends with to our part of the world. And that's a very his daughter actually
she has asked me so many times.
But that's a very doable option for where we live, because we're in a major city. It's not always doable everywhere, but there are there are more doable places than I think we think there are.
And it's such an investment to put into your kids, to do that with them, and to begin to raise them up with this mindset of, yeah, we can go as however God allows us to. So, Chris, Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us this week. Thank you so much for just sharing your life and your wisdom with us. For all of our listeners out there, I really would, just consider that you would pray about what the Lord would have you do as part of the missions program here at Fruit Cove Baptist. And if you're not a church member, find a church where you can get plugged in and get on mission for God. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to join in the conversation, you can always email us at ParentLife@fruitcove.com. We'd love to field some of your questions and comments, things like that. Go to that subscribe button so you can get the update weekly as it comes out. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.